pep talk. So he kind of stole our thunder because a lot of the things that he covered were some of the things we wanted to share with you. First of all, Rose, thank you and your organization, your board of directors, the trustees that are here from South Texas College for being here today. As mentioned earlier, we got two experts here when it comes to education, healthcare. You couldn't have picked two better individuals to be representing the folks of South Texas. And when we do speak about things that are happening in South Texas, we also speak about things that are happening in the entire region. So from Rio Grande City all the way to Port Isabel. We're very fortunate to have people like Daniel King here and his team. Region 1 is probably one of the best ESCs in the country, and I know that for a fact because of my experiences at Texas Workforce Commission. Our goal here is going to be very informal, to have discussion here with two experts. And so at the end of our conversation, I think Rose has allowed us to have time so that if you have any questions that you'd like to ask us, you're certainly welcome to do it. We will be talking about things that many of you may have not heard of. We'll talk about what's happening not only onshoring, but offshoring. We're going to be talking about what's happening in the community, how we all benefit from it. And then, of course, we may be talking about those disenfranchised populations that many of us have neglected, like those folks that have been formerly incarcerated, people with a disability, and what are we doing to put them into work, into a successful career. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and start. All right, gentlemen? So as you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in South Texas and throughout the whole country. Let me ask you, and I'll start with you, Dr. Solis, what are some of the things that employers are telling you, like right now, having to do with the future workforce of South Texas?
Yes, certainly. Yeah, today's employers, they are the key in really involving the colleges and higher education. And I'm so glad that we talked about at the beginning that right now the key, and everybody here is very aware that higher education is the economic engine. Higher education is the answer and the response that communities now need and allude to having, aspire to have. And basically, to your question specifically, it's about skills, advanced skills. The employers today, they're having an uphill battle in finding qualified, skilled workforce at all levels. And we hear that every day. And especially here in the Valley, where we have demand from both ends, from the advanced technical, health-related, administrative, analytical skills, in other words, critical thinking. And of course, the latest one now is creativity, just being creative. And most importantly, the one that I'm always adhering to, always preaching, is one that the students of today, in other words, adults, which we're seeing a lot of them coming back to basically relearn, upskill, reskill, is having the ability and the willingness to relearn. That is right now one of the biggest challenges that adults now, we see the changes from technology, the demands that are required now from software, on and on. You know, we've seen so many different changes so fast that they have to, we've seen a lot of 30, 40, 50-year-olds having to take classes, beginning from continuing education to advanced classes as well, and associate degrees, and all the way up to the university as well. But that is where we see the big change. To your question, is advanced skills, and at the same time having those personal skills as well. That is where the analytical and the creative skills come in.
And that's what industry is asking, right? So we have folks that represent the business community here. So industry is driving, obviously, your curriculum. Manny, would you say the same thing with you? Are you listening to stakeholders? Are they driving what you're doing? Obviously they are, because we have a campus now here in McAllen.
Absolutely. But before we go there, let me just tell y'all how honored I am to be here participating in this conversation. Rose, thank y'all so much for the invite. Judge, Mayor, everybody else who has been involved in Starr County, y'all are doing phenomenal work. I'm glad y'all alluded to the positive changes over the last 20 to 30 years. That's so significant because I was born and raised in Harlingen. Actually, my great-great-grandparents came over from right over here around Manny in 1857. And so I'm full 956, like many of the people in this room, right? And the reality is we've lived it where people look at us as we're the back door to this country. And the reality is we're not the back door to this country. We're the front door. And I love quoting Chancellor John Sharp, who's very fond of saying, as goes South Texas, we'll go Texas, and as goes Texas, goes to the United States of America. And if you look at the improvements that have been made here and across the valley, I like our chances, right, because of the work you guys have done. So congratulations and kudos to you. So to the question, look, I was raised with the premise that education remains the greatest equalizer we have in this country, right? So you can fast forward to the point that my dad started ingraining that in me in the 60s, in the 70s, and the 80s. And I don't even have to quote you today, Julian, because you're here. You can quote yourself. But I love the concept and thought that education is any kind of education post-high school, right? I've asked to tweak that just a hair because we have so many progressive school districts, Region 1 leading the charge, that offer licensure and certification programs at the high school level, right? So I don't think we should limit it just anything after high school. It's anything that leads to a license or certification, et cetera. So the reality is it's not enough for us to say, okay, we're gonna offer a diploma, a certification or licensure, which basically ends up being a piece of paper. Well earned, right? My point is this, we have got to be flexible enough and concentrate on industry needs, because what we have to offer is those diplomas of certifications, licensures, they have to be a bridge to a job, right? They have to be a bridge to something that is not only attainable, but that's gonna help our folks prosper, succeed, et cetera. And so the way you do that, Julian, is by listening to industry. Mm-hmm. I do think, I applaud John Sharp for his vision of establishing an extension campus in McAllen. We love to tell people the center in McAllen is an absolute extension of College Station. Our students get to wear the same ring, they get the same diploma, they get to walk to graduation here and there, both if they'd like, it does not matter, right? But the point is, this is an opportunity for our young women and men from the Rio Grande Valley who aspire to be Aggies to do so in their own backyard. And by doing so, they are saving a ton of money. We call it Aggie Land South, by the way, right? And so I'd like to think that the programs that have evolved, and we have 9 programs right now, they've evolved from industry and community demand, right? And I think that's what we have to do. The challenge for, and Ricardo and I were talking about this, we're private sector guys who've come into this arena, right? But I think it's valuable to have a different perspective sometimes, right? The challenge, I think, for educational institutions is going to be the ability to be flexible enough on the fly to some degree to always trying to address those industry-related needs. It's not easy, Ricardo will tell you. You can't snap a finger and create a new program from one day to the next. You have to have foresight, right? Hence relationships and collaboration with the Workforce Commission, right? Your previous role with industry, with school districts, to be able to have that foresight necessary so that we're trying to stay ahead of the game a couple of years. Mm-hmm. Because it's gonna take that long to develop some of these type of programs. So a little bit of a long-winded answer, but absolutely incredibly imperative.
No, and I think it is important, Manny. One of the things that I wanted to share, and I'm not sure if many of you know this, but you got 2 of the finest institutions here. I mean, what I love about this, and Rose, thank you for assembling this. You got individuals that represent not only a bachelor's degree, but certification, industry recognized credentials that a lot of students are looking at. Let's face it, many of our students right now want to make 6-figure salaries. They want to work from the convenience of a Starbucks down the street. They want to wear their hat backwards. And by the way, parents, they want to live with you forever. So I'm just giving you a warning, that's going to happen. But one of the things that I wanted to share with you all is some of the innovative things that both these institutions have done. So Manny, I'm going to go ahead and start with you first. Why don't you share with the folks here some of the things that you have put together at the port? Yeah. Because you have to understand, even though Manny represents higher ed, 4-year degrees, they are now looking at what students and what industry has been driving, and that is short-term certifications. And then we're going to allude to what the great things that Dr. Solis and his school is doing for not only apprenticeship programs, but how they're addressing the needs of those individuals that have probably, like I said earlier, been displaced. So Manny?
I appreciate that. And I think it's important for me to note that A&M has been in South Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley for 100 years through the agricultural industry, the ag extension services. And so it's not a new commitment to the Rio Grande Valley. To Julian's point, What I truly appreciate about A&M in today's world is they're willing to look beyond the traditional of this is our higher education parameter. We're not gonna look beyond it. We're not even talk or think about how do we expand the opportunities that we want to create down there. So probably several years ago now, if not 2 years ago, A&M established what they call the TRAIN program at the Port of Brownsville. And it was a certification program at no cost to individuals who wanted to participate, by the way, to become certified in many OSHA-related opportunities or activities. Cybersecurity, stop the bleed, those kind of things. And I think to date, they've issued 14,000 certifications through that particular program. We're fortunate, to have a board of region, Texas A&M board of region by the name of Mike Hernandez, who happens to be from Brownsville, who has taken it another step. Just recently, several weeks ago, the governor was down, President Mark Welsh was down, Chancellor John Sharp was down, Mike Hernandez was there, and they had a groundbreaking ceremony at the Port of Brownsville, which will ultimately create a $30 million building that will continue to enhance the opportunities created by the TRAIN program. I love what John Sharp said as he was being interviewed during the groundbreaking, or right after the groundbreaking. He said, listen, the main reason we're building this here is because we understand the demand from industry. But this was the important thing, I think, as part of the conversation that I really picked up on. He said, and we're gonna be flexible enough to always be willing to consider changing the degrees or the programs or the certifications that we offer at this location based on industry need in demand. Now, if y'all haven't been to the Port of Brownsville lately, I would invite y'all to please go out there. Just like this was phenomenal for me to come into y'all's community here in Starr County, and I could not have been more impressed as I was driving into Rio Grande City today. Y'all's HEB, by the way, is 100 times nicer than mine in Arlington. I don't know who I need to talk to, but I'm gonna go talk to somebody.
And Ross.
But I'm saying Ross, but I'm so proud that y'all have the amenities that y'all have here, and that's just gonna continue improving, right? So, but going back to the question, I get off on tangents, I do apologize. That's an example of how A&M wants to be innovative, A&M's willing to be innovative, and A&M's willing to make the financial commitment necessary to develop those type of opportunities.
Yes, you know, so we mentioned certifications. I mean, no one does it better in the country than South Texas College, and especially in the state of Texas. And I know working with Dr. Solis and his team, I mean, they were very fortunate that they would partner up with high schools and of course other communities, like I know Delinda Guillen reached out, and we've been working closely with the Roma mayor with his CTE program and exposing the successes of the JET grant, Jobs Education for Texas. But Dr. Solis, you all have done a phenomenal job of addressing the needs of employers when it comes to the highly skilled trades. Can you elaborate a little bit on what you guys have done?
Well, yes, as I mentioned at the beginning, that we do a skills-first approach. That is the way we provide our education. And let me mention that we're fortunate at South Texas College, we can move much faster than any other institution. I'm not trying to say anything about the university, but that is our biggest advantage. And so if I have an hour, I'll be glad to explain all of that. But anyway, I'm gonna go into talk about the programs that we're doing here, first of all. But most importantly, these programs that we are developing, that we are expanding today in Starr County, these are a result because of the people here that work with us, beginning with the government, the nonprofits, the private sector, and of course now with the leadership, the volunteers. So we're the fifth pillar, in other words, higher education. That is how we've been able to put all these five together and really bring up results immediately. And this is how I live. Unfortunately, I have board members that keep me in check, but they know that, as Rose mentioned, I'm very bold, and we want to move fast because industry, as you alluded earlier, is moving a lot faster, and we always need to be right with them, or better yet, project and have a vision to be ahead of them. Because right now, as I mentioned earlier, industry is concerned about the growth or lack of growth in many other areas in the nation. And we'll talk about that in a minute, of what's happening with the international trade, the globalization, and so on, nearshoring. But then I can't wait to talk about that because we're in the most enviable place to be. We'll touch about that in a second. But when it comes to the skills, that is how we develop it. And at least my leadership style, I go by the 3 R's. And that is doing the right thing. And luckily I have my team here, my vice president's over there, and the team that we have from South Texas College. And number 2, of course, taking risk, as mentioned earlier. We have to be bold and make moves, not be concerned about it's gonna work or not. And that's where the 3rd one comes, regrets. Not to worry, don't have regrets. If you do the first 2, we'll be in great shape. And luckily with the city, the leaders, the nonprofits, I know we will succeed. And that's how I go. Fortunately, I have the board that keeps me in check. I have our 2 board members here besides Rose. We also have Paul Rodriguez. And they make sure that I stay a little bit in line, but they know that I'm gonna forge forward and they just keep me in check that we don't go out too much. And of course, we're always working in concert with the school districts. We're very fortunate that we have the 2 districts here. I believe we have different representatives from Rio Grande City. And of course, my good friend, the superintendent from Roma is here as well. And we're so great to have you as our big partners, and now we have other areas that we're expanding into Starr County. Just very quickly, I wanted to mention, as a result to the demand in our programs and moving so quickly, this has happened in just the last 2 years. We have expanded our welding department. Our HVAC, we also expanded, more than doubled. The electrical, also expanding. Automotive, we have a brand new building that's just about to be rolled out. Our EMT, we have a new cohort. That program has been phenomenal, with more than triple the amount of enrollment. The next one, LPN nursing. We have over 30-something, a record enrollment here in Starr County. Over 35 students now, a record enrollment LPN nursing here in Starr County. That was unheard of 2 years ago. That's very proud for us to be here at Starr. And then also into the patient care program as well. We also have a record enrollment. Again, we're so glad. In the 2 areas that I mentioned when I first came here 2.5 years ago, we were going to focus on technology, which I already mentioned all the programs, and most importantly, health programs, which is why we're doing the expansion with DHR, and we're seeing other programs happening here. But we are already at the forefront in developing these health-related programs. So that just shows how Starr County, the campus here, we are on top of what the demands are. So with that said, I know there's so many other things I would like to talk about, but to your question, it's all about the skills approach and working with the community.
Good. No, and everyone knows that. So as both of you know, we have many that represent the business sector here in the room. What piece of advice do you have for them? Manny, I'm gonna start with you on this question as well. What piece of advice would you have for someone who's not really, really doesn't know that we had an A&M campus? I mean, we've talked about that. We've talked about it numerous times. I mean, is A&M making a push to have a visibility here in Starr County, or could we do a better job of doing that?
Yeah, absolutely, but I need to warn Ricardo that his board members are taking copious notes of everything.
Well, he's up for evaluation.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, that's all that is. And let me also say this, I brag about South Texas every chance I get. These guys know. They hear me publicly, they hear me privately, because of absolutely everything Ricardo just outlined here. This is one of the most incredible assets, not in the Rio Grande Valley, across the state of Texas and beyond, because of what they do and the manner in which they do it. So I absolutely commend you and the entire team. I love these guys. And by the way, these are not new conversations for us. I might be new to higher education over the last year or so, but we've been discussing these issues for decades. I've known these guys for 3 decades plus. So absolutely, awareness is one of my 4 main strategies, right? One is student success, one is recruitment, retention, and then it's awareness. And the reason awareness is so important is because I do want industry to understand what we offer, one, but more importantly, I want to impress upon industry, and especially industry in this room. I love building confianza with people, and I want people to have confianza that they can reach out at will to Texas A&M here locally, so I can outline what the opportunities are that exist in the Rio Grande Valley for our folks, but also just as importantly, what Texas A&M offers, not only in College Station, but across the state in the various campuses and programs that they offer. And so, from that perspective, it could not be more important to me right now than making sure people know that we exist. And it's not from a competitive perspective. One of the things we talk about often, this is not a time to compete. We've got many, many serious things and challenges, things to do and challenges to overcome. And I do like quoting Dr. Nolan Pettis, and Julian, you've heard me quote him often. We're not at a point in time in the Rio Grande Valley where we offer opportunities that exactly match the immense talent. We're not there yet. But that's our goal, to continue creating opportunities like the ones that Ricardo just outlined. And so when I talk about awareness, it's also about that, right? So people understand, we committed. We are absolutely committed every chance to get to collaborate and to coordinate in an effort to create additional opportunities for the young women and men of the Rio Grande Valley, the people of the Rio Grande Valley. Right? Why limit it? Because we know people even a little bit older need opportunities. So absolutely imperative that we get, that people become aware.
And I'd like to add on what you're saying about, I'm glad he brought that up. We're not enrollment focused anymore. It's not about just the numbers. That is not fair for the students. It's certainly not fair for the community. We are now focused, fortunately now we're being funded by productivity, by outcomes, by performance. In other words, it's about quality and programs where there's demand. And especially now, what a coincidence, the state approved this new funding, where today now, the students that are graduating, or they already graduated recently after the pandemic, there's been a huge change of the outlook of students, the expectations. As you probably know, if you have kids, and as he mentioned, they're gonna stay with you forever, living there in their basement somewhere, or in the casita in the back. And that has been, the way it has developed in the past 2 years after the pandemic. The students now want quick, immediate return, like the parents want returning on investment. They want to see the light at the end of the tunnel, yeah, today. And they want to see jobs, and like their expectations, unfortunately, might be way out there. And they want high figures of salaries. Well, it doesn't work that way, but we are doing the best we can. That's why we mentioned, or you did, about the way that we are hoping the students follow, is go through the short term immediately, the 2-year degree, and then continue, be prepared, get all the programs you need, the academic, the humanities, the math, communications, and English, and so on. And if you desire, then you can go to the university. We have bachelor programs, STC. We're the only, by the way, the only community college in Texas that has 5 bachelor's degrees. And of course, fortunately, we have even a lot more options. By us, I mean all of us here in both counties. We have UTRGV, and now, of course, we have Texas A&M, who, by the way, is our biggest partner. They're not worried about, I love the way you said it, about competition. It's not about just having numbers anymore. Now it's about quality outcomes, performance. And the students deserve that. The parents, the community, to have their children gainfully employed immediately. And then with a 2-year degree or a certificate, better yet, they can come back and get another certificate, or if they're prepared and ready, then go to the university, go to A&M, or whatever other university. That's the way it should be. And that is what we're vying for. We're hoping that that is the path that the schools work with us, because that's in fairness. The old anomaly, the old performance model, or what should I say, education model that we were taught many years ago was go to university and go find yourself and figure it out. That's no longer the case. You don't go to university to find yourself anymore. You have to have a deliberate, a focus, laser focused opportunity that you want to be something, you want to be working. This is what the students want now. And this is what we're providing, that very highly flexibility. And of course, you have other great stories where students are able to follow the traditional path that we did. It went through the whole process, university, and then continued graduate school. Let me give you a quick story. Yesterday, I went to the doctor's office to do my annual checkup. Well, I haven't done it in several years, actually. And the doctor...
It wasn't annual.
Well, no, it was, you need to have your checkup once in a while, every 5 years. And the doctor immediately said, Ricardo, I want you to meet this lady here, this young lady. She brought her in. She's on her last year, a 4th year medical student. And I saw her, and why? Well, she has a story. She was basically in her late, not even late 20s, maybe at the most. I was shocked. She's going to be a doctor, an MD. But guess what? She did what the opportunity that we have not seen yet happen in the Valley. She never had to leave the Valley to become a doctor. She went through our dual credit program at STC, and then obtained her associate degree in science, then went to the university, and then went into the first cohort of the medical school here, and now going to be a doctor. Never had to leave. Do you know a doctor that went through that here? So we're going to see this a lot. We're going to see opportunity where students to become a doctor or any other higher paying profession. They will not have to leave. This is what we're doing, bringing opportunities. So when I saw that, I said, wow, this is the first time I met somebody who's gone through that journey. And we're going to see more and more of that. But just like I mentioned, the high end is a doctor. We're going to have all these other options and opportunities that students should pursue, should consider, and with the help of the high schools, where they can go through associate degrees, go to the university, and then come back, get a certification, just like the adults are doing today, and getting specialties, because they are professionals. When they get that certificate in electrical or automotive, advanced manufacturing, or even all the health, those are professional jobs here. And so that is a great model we're seeing here. So we're going to keep our students here in the valley. They don't have to go. So it's very exciting time.
Yeah, words have meaning, and I hope you all keep that in mind. Sometimes when we talk about, he couldn't go anywhere else, or he wasn't college material, I mean, anything after high school, ladies and gentlemen, is considered college. So, do we promote our college settings at our high schools? At our high schools, do we have banners that just say, nothing wrong with this, Manny, A&M, Rice, UT, and all that? Or do we have some that say South Texas College and some of the other finer institutions in the country? That's what we need to talk about. And there's nothing wrong with being a skilled welder. I mean, do you know how much the welders are making at SpaceX right now? And many of those individuals are from this community. They're from here. I've seen it. When I've toured SpaceX, and many of us have done that, we see individuals that come from Rio Grande City or Roma, or they come from La Jolla, and they're there. I mean, we have students that are working there. Manny, we do have individuals, to both of you, that represent the business community, as I mentioned earlier. What are we doing right now to address adult learners? As we know, the average student at a college or a university is about 27, 28, and it's getting older. What are we doing creatively to address their needs, and are we making school more affordable?
I'll answer in this manner. I think we alluded to the new program at the Board of Brownsville that John Sharp just introduced a couple of weeks ago. Part of the concept of that particular program is to address the component of our communities that you're referencing, right? These are people who will have the opportunity to go back or go for the first time and receive education at that level, right? And by the way, we need all trades right now, folks. I don't know of a single industry where there's not a shortage as we sit here today. And as I'm barreling towards Social Security age, we need that workforce showed up so that Social Security is shored up, right? But I do like the conversation because it's emphasizing the need across the board, right? Not just on the higher education side, historical programmatic opportunities, etc. Danny, you and your folks, you know this, most of our school districts here in the Rio Grande Valley, they preach college ready or workforce ready, right? And we're so fortunate that we have progressive school districts with that mentality in regional one leading the charge. But I can allude to that opportunity in Brownsville as being a specific opportunity here in the valley. But I'm going to go away after this conversation. My mind's already churning about what else can we do? What else can Texas A&M do in the Rio Grande Valley that would create opportunity for those folks in our communities who are not in their 20s, but are in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, etc. Because quite honestly, they deserve an opportunity as well.
Manny, so do you offer right now, it used to be this, like you would never talk about programs that were certifications. Is A&M now looking at possibly partnering up not only with institutions like South Texas College, but maybe with high schools and offering some type of certification programs, or maybe something that we're not aware of?
I appreciate it. One of the things we're trying to concentrate on is supplement what's currently being offered in the valley, with South Texas in particular, but the others as well. And so along those lines, let me just give a shout out and a thank you to South Texas for supporting the new nursing program that will be established in January of 26. There were others in the valley that did not support us, or it took a long time to get that support. I'm not going to throw a dart or anything, But the reality is South Texas came out immediately in support of that program because they recognize full well that we need nurses in the Rio Grande Valley, period. No caveats, no ifs or buts. So, but I also think that A&M understands and Allied Health is a great example, by the way, pharmacy tech programs, those type of technical programs where we're short in the valley as well. And so we're having those kind of discussions. I don't think anything's off limits right now. We have a lot of concentration on what we're doing here at the center and where we want to go. And so the timing of the conversation is perfect. But yeah, we're absolutely having conversations. And then I'll absolutely, in pure transparency, make sure our partners are aware of what we're doing, right? Because I can pick their brains, have done things very successfully. If we need some additional supplemental support in that regard, we'll have those conversations. I can promise y'all, our commitment is not to shy away from those conversations. We have total respect, total transparency, and a commitment to collaborate every chance we get to create the opportunities we're talking about, whether they be from a degree program perspective or potentially other opportunities where these guys are doing yeoman's work, but we still have that immense talent not matched by the opportunity in the Rio Grande Valley. And I know they'll be open to those conversations because we've already had them. So.
And you, Dr. Solis, would you like to add to that?
Well, certainly there's a lot of great points that Manny brought up. And, but from the beginning, we have here two college leaders that come from the non-traditional route, especially Manny. I have basically barely a dozen years of higher education experience, which is unheard of for a president, for somebody to be a president. It takes a whole lifetime to get there. And Manny, I think he has like, well, zero, I guess.
Almost a year.
A year now, but he's already there, the leader of an
Close to a
institution.
year.
But that demonstrates that now expectations, corporations, business has changed so much that now it's about relevance. You don't need to have spent 30, 40 years, gone through the traditional route to become a vice president or president in higher education. We're seeing a lot of changes now where people coming from the non-traditional route, you see a lot of business people going down to higher education or even becoming superintendents or running different higher education organizations. That is what we're seeing now, many changes. It's all about relevancy. And I'm glad you brought that up also about this non-compete. We're not here to compete. In fact, on the nursing programs at STC, we have to turn away over 60 qualified nurse applicants per semester at STC. And that's a shame. But they're so expensive and it's so difficult, so competitive to find the actual instructors. So be ready for that. And the clinicals. The time that they have to spend to learn the hands-on. That is a whole challenge that we're all putting together. So at STC, besides the expense and the capacity that we are trying to build even more, that's why we're so glad we're expanding here to Starr. But to be turning away 60, that's over 100 students a year that we're turning away, qualified. There's another 500 plus that apply because they want to go into the health field, nurses. I'm not even counting those. So you can imagine, and we're going to see that happening in other programs, like I mentioned, from the welding to advanced manufacturing to automotive, electrical, on and on. We're going to see that happening eventually. But at SEC, we're proud that we're going to be expanding, so we do not want to turn any student down. As long as you're qualified, that is our goal, to get every student in there, because every student deserves to have a qualified job, a high-paying, high-demand job, and that's what we're going to be doing. It's no longer the numbers that traditionally institutions would do, and then put them out there and let them figure it out on themselves to find a job. We're proud to say that the vast majority, I would say even 100% of our workforce graduate students, they have a job. In all of the fields that I just mentioned, the technical and the health, they're employed before they even walk across to get their diploma. What institution can say that? That is what we're very proud of, that they're employed already. That is what we all deserve here. And that's what all the parents want that. And of course, they don't want the students to be living in their basement anymore. But we know that we want them to be content. So again, we're very proud of that, and we will continue striving for that.
So both of these individuals have talked a little bit about dual credit courses. Manny talked about the train program at South Padre Island, or Portisville, I should say, Brownsville. I mean, that's amazing that a lot of these programs that you're witnessing are taking place here in South Texas. I mean, no one can say that they can't go to college because it's affordable. It's just programs like this, Rose, putting on sessions like this, stakeholder meetings, explaining to the folks that live in your community that there is a possibility for everyone in your community to succeed. Many of these programs that they've talked about can actually be done online. But again, we do have challenges. There are areas where we don't have internet connectivity. So those are areas that we'll have to face, and I know that those are conversations that we've had. So I'm gonna put on my workforce hat for a minute. The mayor alluded to earlier that at some point we were in a community, and the judge mentioned it too, that we were in a community that was primarily agricultural and farming. 20%, 21%, almost 30% of the folks that lived in here, the unemployment rate was that high. Can you imagine 22, 23% of the folks that lived in your community were actually unemployed? Now we're single digits. Actually, it's not even, it's less than 7%. That's amazing, that less than 7% of the folks in your community are unemployed. And people that are experts in economic development will tell you that 5% of those individuals just don't want to work because they retired. So they retired, or they're severely disabled, or they have a felony conviction where they can't go to work. So think about it. So you really only have 2% of your community that doesn't want to work. But why? Not sure what that is. I'm not sure what those challenges are. But I will tell you that you all live in a very vibrant area. I mean, you live where you have ports of entry, you have folks that are industrial experts in economic development, and your schools here have all received programs or equipment for study, that equipment that's being used in higher ed. So I know we're gonna probably be finishing up because Rose is gonna be allowing us to answer some questions from the audience. But Manny, if you had one wish for this community, what do you wish that you could do, that your institution could do to address not only the workforce needs, but the educational needs of this area? Or are you already doing it?
No, we're not, I don't believe we're doing it.
Okay.
Right. The challenge that we have at the center, it's a commuter school at this juncture. We do not offer dorm facilities. We have very few amenities. We're a startup, basically. And so my wish is that any student from Starr County who wanted to participate with Texas A&M would be able to do so at will, right? The reality is we have students, and we do have students from Starr County, by the way. 2 of them graduated through our program last night, and I couldn't have been more proud when they said role model.
Awesome.
That's phenomenal. But this is the reality as a commuter school. These are students who are willing to drive to campus anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and 15, hour and a half away every day that they have class. A lot of these students come from one-car families, let's face it. That's our demographic down here in some of our communities. Think about the commitment and dedication it takes from these students. They get dropped off in the morning when that car is available. They get picked up truly before that car is needed. And they don't get picked up till the very end of the day when that car is available again. And I watch them, and I watch them come get out of the car, and I watch them come into our building, and it inspires, tremendously motivates me to want to make sure we're doing everything we can to support what their dreams look like. So if I had my wish, it would be, okay, would it be a bus, a speed rail of some kind from Starr County to the center in North McAllen? But that would be my wish, that every anybody from the community of Starr County who had a desire to attend Texas A&M would have access to attend the center, and that would make me the most proud person in the world. If we can even make a dent in that, I'm proud, but that would be the ultimate.
It's a good wish. Dr. Solis?
Well, in closing up, I have other questions. I'm always in the belief that changes are to continue, just like I mentioned after the pandemic. We're gonna have to continue, be ready for changes, immediate ones, and adapt. I've been saying that. And secondly, when we see opportunities don't just happen, we create them. That's how we have to approach it together. And that is my wish, that we continue approaching these things just with the understanding that a year from now or several years from now, there's going to be other challenges, and we're gonna have to be ready just to adapt. And that's why I keep on saying that we have to be bold and take risks, but continue with the openness of collaborating. And now it's gonna take even more, as mentioned here by my colleague, where we collaborate and partner and no longer compete. It's gonna not duplicating services or efforts, but doing what's best. And as touched upon earlier, as I said, we're in an enviable position. We are now at the crossroads of international trade. We're on the front yard of this whole internationalization. with taking place in Mexico, taking place from the Far East and other countries now wanting to be right next to the biggest market in the world, which is the United States. Where we're no longer in the backyard, we're in the front yard. And this is where we see so much happening. And as I mentioned, we're the envy of many other regions of the United States because the demographics have gone down drastically. And here we've seen still growth continues. We have a very young labor workforce, and the population continues. So we still have our opportunities are unlimited. It's just we're gonna have to continue being prepared for these changes and adapting and looking at and being innovative as much as possible. But most importantly, working together.
Great. So I know Rose is gonna allow us to, if anybody has questions from the audience, you're certainly welcome to ask any of our speakers. Yes, Mr. Rodriguez? We have a question over here.
This question is for Mr. Vela. Many people here probably don't realize that in your life before arriving at A&M, that you were a member of the executive management team of a major healthcare provider in Cameron County. And in fact, upon your retirement, you were the chief executive officer. And I was wondering if you had a chance to see any evolution of the kind of staff members and professionals that were working at that facility during the time that you were in those positions.
I appreciate the question, Paul. Billy Gonzalez and I were talking about the fact that his wife worked at Valley Baptist before I got there. She worked for the first CEO. And I would love her thoughts on this question as well. Look, COVID severely, in a negative way, impacted our workforce at the health system. And I tell people all the time, to have been in the trench at that time, I wasn't hands-on, but to be part of the team that was the first wave of trying to take care of our residents in the valley is something that I'll hold near and dear to my heart forever. And the level of respect and admiration for the commitment from our healthcare workers across the valley, it can't be any higher because of what I first witnessed firsthand. Now, part of the challenge though was that we started losing a lot of our personnel. Some folks got burned out. Some folks did not want to take the risk of being in that environment, respect it all. But the reality is it created shortages across the board, across all allied health during the COVID situation. Then what ended up happening is we literally had to bring in what's called locums. Right? Locums are agency individuals who you contract to bring in from other parts of the state to try to help you provide the level of care that you wanted to provide. And the reality is we wouldn't have survived without them, but this is, which is the positive part. The negative part is when you bring people from outside the valley to try to assist us, there's not necessarily that same level of commitment, right? That the folks who are from here, who are committed to stay here, who planted their flag here, are willing to provide by way of the level of service. So I did see an evolution of our personnel as I was nearing the end of my tenure as the CEO. I was CEO for 11 years. And so even in that time frame, I saw the new generations coming up. Oh yeah, I nailed it on the head about more instant gratification, right? A different work ethic at times. Let's just face it. I know what I've instilled in my 4 children, which by the way, I wish they'd live with me the rest of my life.
Okay.
But I have seen, I did see an evolution. But having said that, being now on our campus with our 400 young folks who come with such a level of dedication and commitment, I have hope, right? That we're gonna get beyond COVID. I know it's taken a lot of work with you guys and many others, and we'll get to more normalized workforce. But I think what we're gonna see is we're gonna see shortages across the board for a significant period of time, right? And the fortunate thing though, is I've not seen the demand wane, but I've not seen the interest wane either from the folks in the valley, the folks that we're talking about, the generations that are now in high school. If anything, I see a renewed sense of interest in wanting to go down all of these different routes. And I love it when Julian says that education, any education after high school is higher education, because we don't have to pigeonhole our kids anymore. We do not have to pigeonhole our kids anymore. And I can't blame somebody, Paul, if they want to take 9 months to get a certification of some kind that's going to get them to a near 6-figure, versus spending 4 to 5 years to get a full-on degree. The opportunity needs to exist for that avenue, and that's where we come into play, right, with y'all's programs and ours and many others. But I love the thought that our students down here, our folks in the Valley, not limited to the younger generations, to your point, everybody has the opportunity to go down so many different pathways. And so I'm not sure that answered your question, but it was interesting to see the evolution of personnel during that time frame. But it was crisis management at the time. And so I think we're coming out of it, but we're coming out of it very short in so many different areas that there's a sense of urgency. I hope you feel from us. I feel it from y'all that, hey, we don't have time to waste. Let's go, right?
I know one thing I'd like to take advantage of saying is thank your leadership. I mean, thank those individuals that meet with your delegations, your folks up in Austin or anywhere else, because they make it possible. I mean, the training starts early, as I referenced earlier about equipment. You know, I always take the opportunity to thank legislators who work in Austin for allowing general revenue. I mean, we do things in Texas that no one else does. The fact that you have a community college and you have a university and a workforce person, an workforce, official here, that speaks volumes because you never had that. And then you have like Educate Texas in the room, and then you got Teach for America. I mean, you got all these people with the same common denominator, that is making sure that our future workforce is strong and that every student succeeds. You just don't see that everywhere. I mean, I don't know, Mayor, I always try to preach that. Like, not everybody sees that when you travel to parts of the state. But when you get a chance, thank those folks in leadership positions because they make it possible for us to have funding for equipment and for, programs. I know Manny, when he was at Valley Baptist, he asked for a grant through the Texas Workforce, and it may not sound like a real big grant, but it was for bedside manners. It was for allowing those nurses to understand how to speak better, professional development, and they made some of his best presenters. I mean, it was amazing. And the same thing with you, Dr. Solis. I mean, you've been in the forefront of many grants. I mean, you've been very innovative. Dr. Solis' school, just so that you know, they were the first apprenticeship brewmaster approved DOL program in the country. They were teaching veterans how to make beer, and they're taking folks right now to do taste testers. If you guys want to volunteer to do that.
I'd rather talk about the nursing approach.
But the nursing as well. I mean, you're talking about some of the most innovative things that have taken place, not just in South Texas, but in the country, because of Dr. Solis and the support of his staff. That's amazing. I mean, and I think we need to brag about all those things. Like I said, you got two amazing folks here, you got amazing higher ed institutions, but you also have amazing high schools in your backyard. Agreed. Dr. Solis, would you like to say any other questions that we have from the audience? Steve? No, you like saying something?
We have one there in the back.
Come on, buddy. Oh, we got one in the back.
I always have questions. So Dr. Solis, you mentioned earlier that HB 8 will infuse a record $683 million into higher ed through that legislation. So I'm just wondering what STC's plan is for leveraging those dollars to provide more dual credit opportunities for students in the Valley.
Yeah, certainly, as you mentioned, HB 8 is now the new funding that I alluded to earlier, that we're going to be compensated from now on performance. Basically doing what we say we're going to do, making sure students succeed, not just graduating. So it's about making they're completing, or they transfer, or they get jobs. That is what we're going to be focused and compensated on. And I'm glad you mentioned that. And so that's good. In my mind, I think that's going to help us tremendously, because this is how we're geared. South Texas College has already been strategizing like this for years. And many years, and my staff here, they're behind it. I have here the three vice presidents, Dr. Campos, and Dr. Hebert, and Dr. Roddy Rodriguez, who've been behind these programs, and I also have some deans. I think Sala just left. We have Olivia here as well. Continuing education, that is what the future is going to be as well. And though fortunately, now continuing education will be rewarded also financially, will get compensated. Because there are many adults that don't necessarily need a bachelor's degree or even an associate's degree, but they need to have certificates and diplomas, as you've been saying. And this is exciting because now we're going to see adults that wanna have reskilling and upskilling in their forties and fifties that need that. And everybody's gonna need that, including many of us eventually. Because things have changed now, just like we had to relearn computers and software a few years ago, remember that? There's gonna be a lot more changes happening, and where we're gonna be required to take these type of certificates. This is where continuing education will come in, and that's why we're glad that we'll be paid accordingly, so that way the college can continue expanding, taking risks. As I mentioned in the health programs, we have an issue with capacity. It's very costly to have nursing programs, but we're glad, that's why the college is putting many efforts in that, and paying as much as possible to get these instructors that are willing and able and qualified to teach. But in addition to nursing, we also have other programs in the health area that people don't realize. It's not just about nursing. We have from radiology, respiratory care, ultrasound, sonography. I can go on and on, that are physical therapy, occupational therapy. We have 10 other programs that are just as good. There's room to get in, and the compensation is just as good, especially the students that are in the area that remain, they're bilingual. The hospitals want them, you know this better than I do, just as much as they need nurses, they need respiratory care. So we have many other health-related programs that we're very proud of that students can consider. And of course, everybody hears about nursing because we heard all about that during the pandemic. That's all we heard, if they're paid 6 figures, et cetera. Yes, they were, but there's also these other programs. So we're gonna continue advocating for these programs, help us getting the word out that there's many other programs in addition to nursing. But as you mentioned, yes, we've always been at the innovative forefront in creating the first apprenticeships. Apprenticeships, I think that you've seen all the conferences that we had, you're an expert in that as well, are basically where students are being compensated while they're learning. That's unheard of. So imagine that and being able to earn while you learn. And this is what we're proud of. So we have many other programs in addition that apprenticeships from the manufacturing, the automotive, all on and on, that our students now can be able to earn while they're going to college with us. So this is a very exciting time. We're going to continue seeing a lot more changes. Back to the question, yes, this compensation will certainly assist us and continue to expand. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's gonna make higher ed more accountable, which is really good. Do we have any more questions? Any other questions? Judge? Make it a softball question.
It's more of a comment than a question, and this is for Manny. Your wish or your dream really hit home, and you know, when you were talking about getting our students to the facility. Some years back, we had the same problem at SDC. We didn't have a lot of classes that we now have, so some of our students had to go to either McAllen or Weslaco campuses. So we partnered up with Vela Metro, and they furnished the transportation for free for our students, and now they're able to go all the way from Roma to McAllen or the Weslaco campus. Maybe we could explore something like that for A&M.
I'm there, Judge. That's a great idea. We're actually looking at hiring 2 bus drivers right now, but we have a very limited opportunity or options related to transportation. We have a minibus that seats 14 people, but it's on the radar for that exact reason. But I love that thought, and I might be reaching out to you if that's okay with you, and if we can sit down. I would love to dive in and see what opportunities exist, because that would help. I think that would help so many students who currently go, but more importantly for me, it would open the door even wider for students who want to participate but can't for that reason. So thank you for the comment. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
That's a great question, Judge. So, you know, being an innovator and outside the box thinker, I was thinking, why don't you tell Manny, hey, you got those 2 buildings, those 2 classrooms, why don't you put an A&M campus in there?
Look, for me, I'm not afraid of somebody telling me.
And that's on the record, let's see if he says it.
I'm not afraid of anybody telling me no, so if anybody has an ask, let's go. Or Dad and I both have an association
Yes.
with Lone Star National Bank. I'm on the board.
Yes.
When Dad now works with Lone Star. And by the way, kudos to Lone Star for supporting and sponsoring these type of events around the valley. Not because we're associated, but we know the mentality, and it's engage heavily to try to support the communities. But I'm serious, I'm not scared to get no for an answer. So if somebody has a suggestion or idea how we can improve on what we currently offer, or how we can even expand additional opportunities, by all means, come talk to me, I'll come talk to you. I'm very fond of saying, Ricardo, I don't care who it is, if somebody has an aligned desire to create opportunity in the Rio Grande Valley, I don't care what mascot they use, I don't care what color their shirt. I laugh with people all the time. I have my UT folks who will say, "Oh, you're wearing maroon." I'm like, if saying Gig'em or Howdy or wearing maroon creates one more opportunity, I'm all in every day. It doesn't matter to me, right? So
I like your response, when you say, well, they pay my check.
well, I do pay that check every month, so it makes it a little easier to wear those.
But if you think about it, those are the kind of creative conversations that we're having. I mean, the fact that I work at Lone Star, we also have interest with DHR. We've been having these discussions with Dr. Solis and Manny about how we can all work together. Matter of fact, we'll have a meeting later on this afternoon to specifically address that. We can't share any of that right now, but just so that you know, we're in the process of having those conversations specifically in Starr County.
Perfect.
Any other questions?
I just want to make a little statement. As Manny said, we're from Arlington originally. And Dolores, he was on the board of Valley Baptist Hospital, and Dolores retired from Valley Baptist Hospital. She was the payroll clerk for many years there. And Julian is the third, Julian Alvarez. The second, Julian Alvarez, was my best man at our wedding. So I'm really, I need to find something to do with the country.
And he bought a car from you. No. Thank you, Billy. Mr. Canales, I'm gonna tell you a quick story. So Mr. Canales used to work in, if I'm not mistaken, at Clark Chevrolet, or at a dealership. And my father was the inspector at General Motors in California. And so as a young man, obviously my parents were looking for an opportunity, and so they moved to California. But what was really cool, and this is kind of a tearjerker for my dad when he thinks about it, but when the cars were being assembled and he was inspecting the car, he clicked it, and he always looked at where they were gonna be going. And so if he saw that it was gonna be going to Billy Canales' shop, he would always sign him a little note, like, "What's that one?" And I thought that was so cool, man. That car would travel all the way to South Texas, so thank you for that. My dad's also Billy Canales' daughter's godfather, so very cool. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. That concludes today's discussion. We hope that this has